I'm here with Bartok Lycus, the author of The Despoiled Oracle and some other writings, but I don't remember the names of them.
There is right now on my internet archive, we have the Blighted Path 1 and the Blighted Path 2, and the second one is called Walpurgis Nacht Edition, and that was released on April 30th. So those are journals not totally written by me. Some of the articles and rituals in there are written by me, but a lot of the articles and rituals are by other members of the Satanic Front.
So what brought you to the Satanic Front?
Well, that's a good question. I was close friends with Commandant Cultus, and so I got into Temple Blood, and that's how I met him through email, and we started correspondence. Uh, we ended up hanging out in person a few times, got into some ritualism together. Um, and it just led forward from there. He sent me the SF handbook in the mail. Um, I went to Azle, Texas, spent some time with him and his friend Satani Manibus. That was the first time I met him. So we had a lot of common interests, paramilitary stuff, the occult, Satanism. It was just a good fit.
Is that where spiritual experience started, or did it start before getting to that specifically?
Um, I think what first got me into I was always interested in trying to seek the paranormal and the supernatural, and I got into that through just like horror fiction and fantasy, stuff like Stephen King and Clive Barker. And I think that led me to getting a copy of the Satanic Bible, and that was my first stepping stone into black magic. Pretty much is the Satanic Bible. And when I got into it, though, I think I got into it when I was around 15. And, at the time, that was the type of stuff you had to hide from your parents and your friends' parents. uh,
Oh, especially in the 90s, he even got caught looking at candles too long.
yeah, they didn't like, and I had not only a copy of the Satanic Bible, but I had a copy of the Satanic Rituals. And when I was screwing with it, though, I was doing it in a theistic way. I literally believed in Satan. I literally believed in the demons, and I believed in the powers of darkness. It wasn't just some psychodrama or some theatric thing for me. I believe that these were actual existent forces in the underworld, and so that's the way I practice LaVeyan magic, is in a theistic sense, and I actually had some pretty powerful results from doing that.
Not the people who joined the organization, but I think that's actually how most the perception I get is that's how most people went about it, is they thought it was just some drama thing.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I knew some people who were messing around with LaVeyan Satanism too, but it was mostly like a isolated, solitary practice for me.
Well, he must have made a lot of money from the from defamation lawsuits, because it seemed like people left and right were slandering him.
Yeah, and I'm sure you probably read Might is Right by Ragnar Redbeard.
I don't actually think I read any of that, but or there's a couple quotes of Ayn Rand you see in memes, but I don't think I've actually read the influencing things myself, except except Nietzsche.
Interesting. I think you'd be a fan of Might Is Right. It was released. I think it was published in 1890, and so in the Satanic Bible, LaVey plagiarizes about 5 or 6 pages from it. And I think later down the line, when people called him out for it, he blamed his secretary, which I thought was pretty humorous. But I will say I mean I have my criticisms of LaVey, but to this day I think he still had a lot of good ideas that stand the test of time. Um, I do think he was a satanic individual. It is my belief that he was actually a theistic Satanist, but he just thought it'd be better for business to say he was atheistic to not scare too many people off. He basically thought that would bring in more customers, and I think it did. Because people don't want to be thinking about, hey, if people don't want to think about they're really playing with fire and they might have to face eternal damnation for what they're doing.
Well, that was one of the weird one of the well, I guess it is a weird thing, but it's one of the well, okay. Also, is that like they talk. Some of the churches use the metaphor like a fire is burning. When that sort of experience comes outside of the church, it's more real. It's not so you tend to know more that oh, it's not just a feeling you get. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think you look at LaVey and you look at his attitudes and his philosophy and ideology, or even like his political ideology. The guy was a social Darwinist. He was an anarcho-capitalist. And you look at most of the Church of Satan followers today, and they're like far left wing socialist. They're absolutely nothing like the founder of the church. And I think when he did open the Church of Satan on Walpurgisnacht of 1966 in San Francisco, I believe it was, he painted his house black. Um, at that time, I do believe the Church of Satan and its teachings were strongly countercultural, but that time has passed, and now it's just a bunch of milk toast, boring crap.
Yeah, I think a lot of things lose their power when it kind of switches over. What do you think the purpose of life is?
The purpose of life, oh man, that's a big one. Well, I think that would I think I think I would relate that to my beliefs in Satanism and what I think Satanism is about. The core of what true cosmic theistic Satanism is about is obtaining worldly power, earthly dominion, and the fulfilling of forbidden fantasies. And so yeah, I would say those are the main things. And then I think also the glorification of the ego and hedonistic pursuits along with that.
What are your favorite satanic attributes? Or favorite demons or class of demons or that sort of thing?
Favorite class of demons. Well, something I really like to study is the antediluvian age and the fallen angels and what that was like when the fallen angels came down to earth and the mortal beings were worshiping them, and the fallen angels were teaching them all sorts of things like black magic and the art of seduction, and giving the women cosmetics and makeup, and teaching the men how to build weapons of war. And I think that stuff is pretty badass.
Do you put that at a particular period? I know some people are going to say, well, the Black and Red Sea flood, but like before that. But
A certain period I couldn't tell you. I guess my biblical scholar skills aren't up to snuff to tell you the direct period, but that's just that's something I like to read about. Like in the book of Enoch, I know it talks about that a lot.
Because there's different periods they talk about. Like if you say the Mount Hermon stuff or the Lalish stuff, that at least goes to one point, and then there's other angles to look at that sort of thing. But um, do you believe in a pre or post existence to the physical body?
Pre or post existence. So like
Well, I mean, an existence other than just, you're born, you're died as a body, and then,
oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely do. I would say I believe in both. I definitely believe in an afterlife. Pre-existence, I think Mormonism, like Mormon theology, has it correct with that. That I think we were probably some type of spirit beings before we came down to Earth and attached ourselves to like physical mammal bodies. I mean, even like Scientology talks about something similar.
well, I think they kind of dulled the Lucifer character, but the general theme, yeah, I definitely can get behind that whole we're given a choice and we kind of know, and then kind of now we kind of don't remember all that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as spirit beings, we might have witnessed the war in heaven, and that kind of determined our status on the earth and whether we're going to follow Satan or we're going to follow Yahweh.
Is there any particular idea of certain deeds that will affect the afterlife or certain directions that will change that? Or is it just thought of in one group, the one side or the other?
Um, I think a lot of people believe in maybe being reincarnated into one of the 13 Illuminati bloodlines, stuff like that, like being born into these satanic generational regal bloodlines. And I definitely think that's a thing. I Now how exactly to get there is kind of murky. I mean, I think obviously you live a life with black faith and service to Satan. I mean, that's going to help, but I mean, I couldn't give you like a step-by-step blueprint.
Like some people would look at grimoires like the Goetia and say, well, each of them relates to a quality trait or something, or some aspect of personality or something like that. And they kind of work it through like that. Um, of course, much more common as time goes on is that people are stripping the Christian veneer off of all that stuff. Um,
Yeah, I remember. I think the version of the Lesser Key of Solomon that I have as like a foreword by Aleister Crowley, and he kind of talks about how even if you're not looking at it in a spiritual sense, like the 72 spirits in the Goetia, um, they all, if you're when you're working with one, they all stimulate a different part of your brain. And I thought that was interesting. Like maybe one stimulates like a mathematical part of your brain. Maybe one stimulates a part of your brain that helps you learn foreign languages better.
for me it wasn't as coherent in that way, but it was more like I don't like not like a colored language. You know what I mean? Like there was different colors and patterns and maybe feelings and stuff that you'd notice was different combinations per each entity is was my experience working through that one in particular. Same thing with most of the grimoires.
Yeah, it's something I'm trying to study more is there are some qualities and traits of these spirits that what they can offer you is a lot more common. And then there's other ones of what they can offer you is incredibly rare. You're only going to find it in one or two spirits. Um, like a pretty common one is like a spirit that can help you understand all the properties of stones and herbs, and or that can turn an enemy into a friend or a friend into an enemy. Like things like that are fairly common. But I think there's a spirit called Malthus, and he builds high towers and furnishes them with armaments and stuff like that. I think it's interesting when the spirit can offer you that something that none of the other spirits can offer you. And I guess that's one thing I did with Satanic Front as we were doing group ritual work with the Lesser Key of Solomon. And one of the first things we did was I said, okay, pick a spirit, pick a demon, and make a blood oath and write down on this blood pact to the demon why you're choosing to work with them and what you hope to get out of that relationship with them. So in that way, you can bind the unholy covenant like that. And I chose to work with Astaroth because Astaroth can tell you the history and the origin of all the fallen angels. And I thought that was incredibly fucking cool because that's a super rare ability you're not going to find with any of the spirits in the Goetia.
And I can't think of any other grimoire that kind of talks about it quite like that. Um, and it's a big part of Poke Runyon's story. If you've heard of the Church of Hermetic Sciences, they have a very strong reaction that they don't want to use the term Yahweh and stuff like this. So they came up with a different way of doing it and put in all the Canaanite, well, not all the, but they did, the contrary list of deities like Moat and Ball and
Yeah, I've really always had a strong interest in Baal as like a or Baal. I've heard different ways to pronounce that, but my friend Anton, he sent me in the mail. I still need to read it. I've looked through it and it looks really good, but it's a book by that author and magician Poke Runyon you were just talking about, and it's called I think it's called Seasonal Rites of Baal and Astarte. And yeah, I need to read that soon because that looks really cool. But yeah, I've heard good things about that author in general.
well, one of a discovery that I one a discovery that me and a friend that did various ritual work um, in different settings discovered that beyond our sight we were just drawn towards it. In this park, someone set up this odd ball altar. I mean, it was in a format that I'd never heard of. Not anything ancient, not anything in the grimoires, except the fact they used the Key of Solomon symbol. And
Oh, okay, cool. You saying you saw an altar somewhere?
yeah, somebody set something up in a park, and there were blackbirds circling around some sort of designed pit, and you could just the presence had just permeated the whole thing, and they had magic circles around like at least seven trees, and
That's awesome. That's the best when you just stumble across somebody's demonic altar out in the wilderness like that.
And at a public place at all. Here I can meditate and figure and select rocks and spend weeks moving stones and lines and stuff. But at a public place to you know set something up 50 feet across or whatever that thing was. Um, as far as emotional or other motivational things is love, hate, fear, hope, or the mere experience of it more of a motivation?
Hmm. I would say hate, but there's actually like I feel like most people aren't worthy of my hate because hate is something that takes a lot of energy and effort. You gotta put a lot of dedication in that. I mean, there's definitely things in life that I hate. But I would say my I don't think it's something you included there, but my main motivation would be fun. I think that's the main thing that motivates me in life is fun. Like if I'm not having fun with something, I can't concentrate on it. I can't work towards a goal if I can't work towards anything if I'm not having fun with it.
So is that more of a momentary thing, or is it a hedonistic? You look at the big picture and kind of weigh things.
Um, are you saying is the being motivated by fun a momentary thing or?
Yeah, is it what it is at the time, or are you looking at the overall picture?
Oh, well, I think if we're talking about like the main like huge goal in the future that Satanic Front has, is that what you're wondering about?
Whether it's personal, collective, yeah.
Oh, okay, that would be like a an independent Satanic state. And that would be fucking amazing. But yeah, we'd love to own some land out in the wilderness where we can just do collective satanic rituals, worship our God, the only true God. Some bonfires, beer, ghost stories, all that fun stuff.
Oh, and by the way, with this graphic, it has Baal on it, but it has um so the people say ah instead of all because that I thing makes the ah sound.
Yeah, is that how you usually say it? Is Baal?
Yeah, I try whenever possible to take things back to the pre-Israelite form of the language, um, or at least before the Hebrew, because it was originally called Aramaic until only the Jews spoke it, and then they decided to call it Hebrew. But so it's been one of the big lies about biblical scholarship is that if then you transliterate the language as Armya, that's not pronounced as Hebrew. Um, but that's not really much of a point for here.
Yeah, I know that thing with in the Old Testament a lot when a shrine or an archway is set up to Baal, there's usually the pole of Asherah. And so I guess the Asherah is another way of saying Astaroth, but it seemed like Baal and Yahweh were almost fighting over Asherah as a bride.
Well, in some things, like for example, you may know that Yahweh comes from an ancient Egyptian formula that was used for let's just call it Thoth and Ra. Um, so it was a formula used before. The Arabs used it, and it just got picked up as the formula. And then they got all weird about it that it's this formula that we're going to have these special rules about. So they've decided on that. But the mythological stories kind of change back and forth a bit. Like one of the things that they did, the book of Esther is really about Ishtar or Ashtaroth and Marduk. Um, it's sort of a carryover from that, because those aren't really the people's names, although some of the aspects of the story match up with a genocide that did happen.
Yeah,
But there was definitely
I,
competition going on back and forth.
apologies, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but I'm sure you've heard of the serpent seed doctrine, the idea that the serpent had sex with Eve and spawned Cain. So Cain is a literal son of Satan by blood.
Um, I'm not sure all the side references, but that sounds like something that they would have had to encounter for the people. The Jews, they were either a purple or a blue thread. The language is, either one of those works, purple, blue, violet. So it was one of two animals, one of two processes. So you had at least four ways to make it. But they wear that thread because of a group that was like that. They tend to be endogenic. They believe that they were the seed of the one versus the other. And that's kind of what that sort of idea conveys, is that their bloodline very specifically. But they say to mark themselves, they don't wear any blue or purple. They say humans aren't allowed to wear that. So the Jews would wear the blue and the purple thread, which was really expensive, but it made everybody know, oh, well, this dude's not a Satanist. So they were more blue or purple.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, that's something we have in Satanic Front, and I wrote about that in an article. And the first blighted path is the serpent seed bloodline, and the idea that Cain was a direct descendant from Satan. He was spawned from the bestial lust in the garden, which is what expelled them out of the garden. And and then obviously he was after killing his brother, he was cursed with the mark of Cain. And we believe that the mark of Cain, not just reeking with sulfur and being cursed to wander the earth forever with immortality, it's we believe Cain is like a Sasquatch type creature.
So is it kind of like one of these individuals that semi has respite, not quite like the spirits, but like wanders the earth for thousands or whatever years, and but people kind of don't know.
Yeah, we believe that Cain is basically like he'll come out of his cave here and there, but he's basically a subterranean Sasquatch like creature who reeks of sulfur. And a lot of people who have had cryptozoological encounters with Bigfoot have reported that he reeks of sulfur.
There, I don't know if I don't think I called it a Sasquatch or whatever, but it's kind of in that category. One of there's I get the sense that there's some sort of connection to something else underground. You know what I mean? But there's definitely holes in that. I've been in the eight cave, and I encountered that there was a being. It was kind of that had a smell like that. And there was someone down in Oregon. There was another being I encountered that I would say is of that category.
Really, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, I've never had any sort of close encounter with a Bigfoot or anything, but that'd be cool as long as I wasn't mauled to death. Interesting note is the early Mormons believed the same thing, that Cain was a Sasquatch, because they saw the mark of Cain as a bestial curse, in something that makes you hideous and smell nauseating, that no one would ever want to be around you again.
Well, until about what 70,000 years ago or something like this, we were people were hairier, and there wasn't much of a divide between top and bottom as far as the hair. There wasn't a clear, you know, there was a break, you know.
Yeah, and what was that? It was like the war between the Neanderthals and what other class of mammals? I can't remember the exact name, but the other class of mammals was a lot more intelligent than the Neanderthals. So the other class of mammals were creating weapons and projectiles to kill the Neanderthals with, but when the Neanderthals could get their hands on them and kill them, they would they would drag their corpses back into their cave, crack their skulls open with a rock, and eat their brains, because they thought they could absorb their intelligence and then win the battle against them.
You can actually look at ancestry and figure out whose ancestors ate more, not only stuff like pig and rat and dog and stuff like this. You can figure out who actually cannibalism in particular, actually, if it's over time, really shows up actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just talking to a friend the other day, and I was being dead serious. I was like, if there was a legal way to try cooked human flesh, I would totally try it.
Well, Florida's they started selling lab meat and apparently cadaver meat. There's been ways to get it, but in recent years, there's been states picking up banning it for sale for such. It's actually Florida was the first one to pass any laws to absolutely ban either one.
Oh, okay, that's too bad. Yeah, we need
That,
some human jerky in gas stations.
well, it's definitely something I don't really follow Alex Jones, as you may know. I kind of made a point to refute at least something that he was saying. But from what I hear in recent years, he's been singing about eating his neighbors and stuff.
Oh yeah, that was during the COVID lockdown stuff. I remember that. That was funny.
So did these beings ever grant or take you along with powers of prophecy, miracles, connections beyond what can be physically explained?
So I think what you're asking is, have I ever had any type of visions?
If that's how you're going to answer it, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I have had paranormal encounters. I write about both of those. I write about one of them in the first volume of Blighted Path, and then I write about the other one in the other volume of the Blighted Path. One of them was, I'm sure you've heard of the Hat Man.
Yeah, I've heard of the Hat Man. Haven't had a Hat Man experience myself, but
Yeah, I think I was 10 or 11, and I had experience with the Hat Man. Basically, I was trying to go to sleep. I couldn't go to sleep. I looked out my window, and I lived in this cul-de-sac, and in the street in the middle of the cul-de-sac, there was this guy, and he looked just like a normal dude, right? Just wearing jeans, everything. And then about, I don't know, 12, 13 feet away from him, they're just staring into each other's eyes, but it's the Hat Man. He just doesn't look human. He looks like he's made completely out of this fucking otherworldly shadow. He got like beaming red eyes. He's got one of those flat brim hats. Um, so basically, it just scared the hell out of me, and I I was hiding, and then I looked out my window again, and the dude had disappeared, and the Hat Man was just standing there. So I was thinking, the guy got killed, or the guy got like transported into the underworld. I don't know. But yeah, I went, ran into my brother's room and fucking hid under the covers. Um, I've had a lot of other stuff like that.
I've had a lot of liminal sort of stuff too, like something's like in between, like back when I was a Christian and all that, and it's not like I was like rebelling or something either or whatever, but it's like there was experiences that I would have that I couldn't deal with, and one of them is like I don't know, it sometimes felt like things were watching me or like something would be in the shadows, but like I wouldn't be quite aware of it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. The journals. I think these journals were from published by Martinet Press, but the Quran's journals.
I don't think that was. Oh, wait, the issues. Yeah, one, two, three, and four, I think were what they released.
Yeah, there was one ritual in one of those, and it was called something about the black column ritual, and it was something like you collect your own urine and saliva into a bowl, and then you mix it with cigarette ash, and then so you create this profane circle on a wooden floor or on concrete or something. And so at night around midnight, I went to the room that my grandmother passed away in, and I created the profane circle. And then I remember you were supposed to set up some candles. You were supposed to recite something. I can't remember everything that went along. It was called something like the Black Column Ritual. But so soon after I did that, uh, paintings without being touched were just being knocked onto the ground. Um, the floor was shaking and vibrating a little bit, and then I saw this entity. It just appeared out of the window, and it looked like it was made out of like a mix of like ethereal and smoke from the abyss is the best way I can describe it. But it had these like piercing white eyes, like I was looking into the windows of infinity or something. And then it basically had all these fucking tentacles of abyssal smoke waving around. And I was just sitting in that profane circle, just staring at that fucking creepy entity. And that was one of those times when I realized I was like, man, this black magic stuff really works. It really works sometimes.
Yeah, and to experience it's something beyond like you learn to visualize stuff, but it's not that's not quite what happens.
Yeah, if you're doing a ritual and you have pretty much immediate poltergeist activity, and maybe that's not the best word for it because it wasn't like a violent ghost or anything, but there was some unseen force that was just knocking paintings off the wall. Um, so yeah, if you're doing a ritual and you have some immediate kind of
Oh, we're
uh,
under a minute for this meeting left.
we got 1 minute left.
Yeah, less than so.
Oh, okay. Well, I did want to say it was an honor being on here. I've been a big fan of your channel for a long time. So I'm glad you